It's the Sheriff Podcast, baby. Yeah. It's the Sheriff, AHL Man of the Year. 500 pro fights in his career. Got the record for most ice fights in the season. You fought the Sheriff, lucky you're still breathing. It's the Sheriff, AHL Man of the Year. 500 pro fights in his career. Got the record for most ice fights in the season. You fought the Sheriff, lucky you. We filmed the pod today. You listening tomorrow. The heavyweight champ, yeah, Sean McMahon. 13-year pro, yeah, he holding it down. Big man playing it right, thumbs up to the crowd. Rookie season threw it up, most tilts in the A, man. Sheriff badge on the bucket, heavy can play, man. Podcast trending, thanks for rocking with us, bro. Lived out his dream, yeah, he played in the show. Danny Grange managing, helping us gain shine.
Welcome everybody to an exclusive edition of The Sheriff. Boy, oh boy, would Don Cherry be proud, and do I ever have a treat for you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is very rare that hockey players will get to play at multiple levels with each other. My guest tonight actually played with me at 3 different levels, ladies and gentlemen. The historic Kitchener Rangers of the OHL, the Rochester Americans of the AHL, and of course, guys, the Buffalo Sabres. My guest tonight is one of the most exciting players I've ever played with, and I'm going to introduce him right now. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls all over the world, I would like to introduce to you my guest tonight. He hails from Clarence Creek, Rockland, at 5'9", 185 pounds. He is a middleweight. He was drafted in the second round to the Kitchener Rangers of the OHL. He won the OHL Rookie of the Year in 99-2000. He was drafted in the second round, 32nd overall, to the Buffalo Sabres. He was named captain of the Kitchener Rangers and led Kitchener to the OHL Championship in 2003. He made his NHL debut also in 2003 with over 700 NHL games. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, my former teammate and friend, Mr. Derek Roy. How you doing, my man?
Good, buddy, good. What an intro.
What an intro. I don't know why, Rosie, but I always get a little bit more nervous with my old teammates just because I have so much going through my mind. There's so many memories. So, bear with me, buddy. I'm going to be a little bit hyper today.
I get it.
I'm really excited and all fired up to go. But welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
So Rosie, you've been on the show once before, brother, and we went over a couple things, but our audience now is a little bit more bigger. It's a larger audience. I kind of wanted to get back to the beginnings of Derek Roy. So I wanted to get back to Clarence Creek and Rockland, which I kind of messed up in the intro. First off, just for interest's sake, what we were talking about before the recording, can you explain the double name of Rockland and Clarence Creek?
Yeah, it's tough. We grew up just outside of Rockland and Clarence Creek, so our telephone number was Cumberland, our address was Clarence Creek, and our postal code was Rockland. So we're kind of like right in this weird zone where we had 3 different things going on, and I think Rockland and Clarence kind of got together. This is after I moved out, and then they just called it Clarence Rockland now. So that whole area is Clarence Rockland.
Now, it's not the biggest town around now, is it?
No. No, I mean, I played in Clarence Creek when I was in novice, so we moved there when I was in my major novice year. And right then there, I didn't have any friends or whatever. That's where hockey comes into play, and you go to the hockey rink, and you meet all these people, and now they become all your friends, and now you go to school with them, and now I just made a new bunch of friends just based on hockey. So, hockey was there for me at a young age, and I think the town had like 800 people maybe, or 1,000 people. Yeah, it was a small town, and that's where I started playing novice there, and then went to high school in Rockland. At the SCAT, it's a French high school. So, good memories. I still have a lot of friends down there, and still keep in touch with some.
Right on, brother, and I appreciate you sharing that. I wanted to get into the whole family situation. Now, I know that there's 3 boys. There's mom and dad. You're the middle child, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about RJ first. Now, RJ is your older brother.
Yeah.
I believe you guys are 1 year apart.
Yeah.
So what I got into the last show when we were talking about RJ was a little bit of a sibling rivalry, but most importantly, how it affects the younger siblings when they do have an older sibling to push them. Now, I know RJ was a pretty decent hockey player as well. I remember us joking around that, you know, RJ started as a center or a winger, and then, you know, he kind of bumped back to defense because he might not have been as gifted at goal scoring.
That was Scotty.
As the middle brother.
Scotty,
Okay, so that's Scotty.
My younger brother moved back deep, but
Right on.
yeah, my older brother was a really good hockey player growing up, and like you said, you're just trying to keep up to his status, and especially when there's a year difference at such a young age, it makes such a huge impact. And for me, always trying to be better than him and always battling every day, whether it's street hockey, outdoor rink, or whatever it is. We always took things to another level and battled each other. So there's a few fights, and you know it's all part of it. When you're playing hockey against each other every single day, there's bound to be a couple of stick incidents. So so we had a good time growing up and playing hockey together. For sure.
Right on. So now, what about when Scotty came into the picture? What were the dynamics then when you guys had the three? Now he's a few years younger.
Yeah. Scotty's 6 years and then 7 years from my older. So it was kind of it was a little different because when we're 13, he's 7.
That's right.
6.
That's
so
right.
it's kind of like it's such a big. So we had to just bring him along with us and put him as a D-man or put him in nets or something. So we'd always, I felt bad for him sometimes. We always had to bring him along, and he always had to kind of like hang out with us. So it was back in the day for Scotty. He obviously learned a lot from us. We tried to teach him some things growing up, but I think we abused him pretty bad as a kid.
For sure. And he probably has some crazy memories of some clappers that were point blank range.
Oh, yeah.
Just get right at his head.
Yeah. We used to dress him up in gear in the basement, and then just like, hey, so run down this wall, and we won't hit you, I promise. And then we just body checked him in the wall. So
Right on. I appreciate you sharing that, man. Now your father played as well, Royce. He did play junior, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you played junior, but what I wanted to ask you about was the pro tryout that he got, because didn't he got a pro tryout somewhere in California?
Yeah, he did try out for the California Gold Seals. I think they were in town, and they were calling a bunch of people into one arena, and they just tried out, and he didn't make it. And I think that was the last straw. I think it was at that time he's my height, short. Back in the day, there was a lot of big guys, and it was probably at a point where it was like, what are you going to do with your life now? Are you going to continue chasing this dream, or are you going to, get a job kind of thing?
Yeah.
So I think that's where, he just decided to start a family, get a job. And
does he have any like pictures in the basement of like the tryout or anything?
Yeah, there's a couple old, no tryout pictures, but a couple old pictures of him, and it's pretty funny to see.
Yeah. Do you guys all look alike? Like, does your dad look like you? Like in stature?
Not really. Well, my mom's redhead, and my dad's dark hair, so we're kind of blondish.
You're right in the middle.
We're right in the middle. Yeah.
Right on, man. Right on. So I wanted to so what I want to get into now is, obviously you probably had an incredible minor hockey career growing up. Now, when you started getting scouted by the Kitchener Rangers, I want you to talk about the connection that your family has with Jamie McDonald, who would be the GM of Kitchener when we played. Yeah,
so Jamie coached my brother growing up, and then he coached in Hockey Canada, and he coached kind of all over in Canada, and he became the GM of the Rangers. And so I played up a few years, in tournaments and so on. So Jamie's obviously seen me play multiple times, and then Jamie just really liked the way I played and thought that I would definitely help the Kitchener Rangers. So he said he was going to draft me, and then we ended up going to Kitchener, and it was kind of like the best 4 years of your life, playing junior hockey at that time. It was like, this is it. This is amazing. And you're playing, in all these small, tiny rinks when you're, Bantam, and all of a sudden now you're going to like 8,000, 8,000. So now it's one, you feel like you're in the NHL. It's almost the mini NHL, right?
Absolutely.
And my first few years was like that, and then I feel like you get comfortable after a few games, and then you're like, okay, I belong here, kind of thing.
Exactly. So now, so I'm not going to let you off that easily, though. So Jamie McDonald, he had an incredible inside scoop on you then. He got to see you play before. He coached your brother, obviously knew your family. Man, how good did Jamie look drafting you? And Royce, now that I'm thinking about it, I know that you were obviously an underager, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not even sure if I got that round right.
Yeah, I did. I went second round.
Okay, so you did go second round. So I was right, because I'm like, I know it was second round to Buffalo, almost first round, because you were 32nd overall. But then I'm like, wait a second, was he the first round pick? Was that Steve Eminger then?
Yeah, so I was It was a weird story, but I was ranked pretty high coming out of Bantam and like top 5. And so Emmeringer was supposed to go 3rd, and I was supposed to go 4th. That was the whole plan.
Okay.
So they took somebody before Emmeringer.
Okay.
And then so Kitchener was like, hey, how about we take Emmeringer and see if we can take Roy in the 2nd round.
Okay.
Because I told some teams, because I didn't want to go 3rd. I think it was St. Mike's.
Who was it? St. Mike's, small arena.
So I didn't want to go 3rd because I just knew Jamie and I knew I was going to play, and I knew the team wasn't very, like, they had a rough year before, so they needed scoring. Yeah. And so I felt like I fit perfectly into that situation. And I ended up I told people that I was going to college because I really didn't want to go 3rd.
Okay, so you kind of like pushed off other teams that were interested, made them think that you were going to college.
But then when I didn't go 4th, I was like, oh man, maybe I'll slip to 2nd round. Yeah. And I did, and it worked out. It gave me a little chip on my shoulder too, which was kind of good because
being rated top 5,
all those teams that passed on me and just didn't even take a chance. So mentally, I was just like, you know what, I'm going to camp and I'm just going to kill it. So I run Rookie of the Year that year, so I was pretty happy. And I worked really hard that summer and got ready for camp.
So now that because we just brought it up, and it's such a big talking point, like in hockey shows. What do you think about the new rules of major junior players being able to go to NCAA Division I whenever they want?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's for us growing up and playing, we never had that opportunity. You had to make a decision when you're 15 years old,
and it was a big one too.
It's a major decision at 15 years old, or 14 and 15, and you have no idea. I didn't know anything about the OHL. I didn't know anything about going to play college. I had no idea. I didn't know anything about the teams. Didn't know anything about the GMs, coaches. What their day-to-day operations are. So you make that decision when you're that young, and you're basing on your marks in school
maybe your size. Because remember, Royce, they used to say, "Oh, the OHL is for the big players, and the NCAA is for the fast players," right? And we were torn apart, and like 100%. families were torn in half. They didn't know what to do.
But now you got a better understanding. You get more time to make a decision. You can kind of try one, and if it doesn't work out, or if they say you go to some college team, they're like, oh, you're going to play, and then you show up and they don't play you. They just redshirt you, and then you don't play, and then now you can, like, you know what? I can use my talents elsewhere and go help an OHL team or something like that. So or it can go both ways, right? It can go the other way. But or maybe you go to the OHL and you think, maybe I don't have a chance to play in the NHL. Maybe I'm just going to go college route and get my 4 years degree, and then quit hockey and go do something with my life after. Like there's different situations where I think where you have to put that much pressure when you're 15 years old to make that decision.
I was blown away, man. Like when I saw that, like I saw reports of certain players in the OHL that have committed to schools for next year. And then I'm not sure if I'm getting the terminology right, but also the money that's involved. I don't know if is it called NIL, where the college players NIL. So apparently there's a player that's on the team in Saginaw that already has like a $80 million deal like set up in some school for the NIL sponsorship or whatever it is. So I mean, it's opening up younger players to be able to make money. These teams are making money. So like in basketball now, I think it's time that maybe the players got some credit for those jersey sales and stuff like that. Imagine all the Roy jerseys that were sold in Kitchener.
We were making $50 a week.
$50 a week, man. We were balling.
When you say that to people, they're like, no way. I was like, man, we're making $50 a week. We're also getting everything paid for.
Everything was taken care of.
But it's still $50.
I know.
It didn't go very far.
And man, there was some teams that actually taxed the $50. Yeah. So they were getting like $42.50. Man, it's unreal, but I thought thanks for sharing your opinion on that, because it's such a big difference now for these major junior players. They have so many more options.
It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, because
it will be.
Nobody knows exactly.
No one knows how it's going to go. You're absolutely right about that. You're absolutely right. Now, so here's another one I wanted to talk to you about. So now, before your first year in Kitchener, your dad was a little bit concerned about the physical play.
Oh, I know,
right?
I know where you're going.
So you guys signed up for some boxing classes. Tell us about that and the idea behind it.
Yeah, my dad was like, obviously he played Bantam hockey. There's no fighting.
Yeah.
It was just pushing around after the whistle or whatever. So my dad was like, hey, if you're going to go to the OHL, you might have to fight.
Yeah,
which
possible.
which I did.
Yeah, you did.
You had to.
Yeah.
It was pretty much, it was a line brawl.
Yeah,
Guy
early
comes,
2000s.
You just got to fight.
Yep.
And so I was like, okay. So he's I remember Barry Brennan from Ottawa. He's a golden glove boxer.
Yes.
And he used to teach hockey players so workouts like powerlifting and boxing.
Okay.
And
that's pretty interesting.
some quick feet and all that stuff too. And so we did that summer. And
did your brother do it with you, or like just?
No, it was just
okay.
me. Yeah, and I was doing it with other players, whatever.
Yep.
But it was some just punch in the bag, but also like stuff that were punch out, where it's like 30 seconds or a minute where you're punching the bag nonstop as quick as you can. So like it was tough, but it definitely teaches you how to punch.
Yeah.
Throwing your body weight and punching. I didn't get into that many fights my first year, probably like 3 or 4. Like, it wasn't crazy.
Not bad for the rookie of the year.
Yeah. Well, I was one of those. Like
almost
I said,
100 points.
Some guy drops the gloves in front of you. You just have to do it, right? That was back in the day. Now it doesn't happen as much, but there was line brawls back in the day. Remember those? Like you just had to whoever was in front of you, and usually it wasn't a big guy. Usually it was like another kind of guy your size.
Well, everybody had to pair up, and you had to defend your team. That's just the way it is. So Royce, before we move on to the next topic, I just wanted to recognize some supporters of the show. Guys, the Sheriff Podcast is powered by Apex Elite Training. Apex, I'm going to be doing a short video at the end recognizing all their strengths. I want to thank Dr. Alan Zachariah for his support. Thank you, Zach. Guys, look up Apex on social media and online. Also, guys, we have the debut of our new team photographer, Richelle Johnson. You can look him up. His Instagram account is HNC. That's Harry Nancy Charlie .untold, ladies and gentlemen. Check this guy out. Incredible photographer, incredible man. Also, guys, chatting with the Sheriff, Danny Granger Art, and Aguilar Productions is also a big supporter of the show. So now, Royce, the next topic that I want to get into was your last year in Kitchener. You played 7 preseason games for Buffalo, almost made the team. So now you're coming back to Kitchener, okay? Yeah. And what I want to tell you about is the story of you being asked to be captain.
Yeah.
You almost forgot.
So
now the big man coming back from the NHL. So I just want the viewers and listeners to understand the dynamics. So this is a player that almost makes the NHL. I think you were like the last cut.
Yeah, they wanted to keep me on to give me some games just to kind of, because I had a really good camp, and they wanted to keep me on just to, get some NHL experience
and confidence.
And then get around the guys and learn to travel and do all that stuff. And I played pretty well. I think I scored my first game.
Did you?
And then played pretty well the whole time. And then they just like, you know what, next year you're too young, and I get it, and I wasn't ready, and I understood that. But going back down to Kitchener was such a different thing because everything's so fast and high paced in the NHL.
Yeah.
And when you go back, it's like slow. It's like literally slow motion.
I know.
And so you had to find your game again and see how you got to slow it down and breakouts and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And time it better. Yeah, so it was a little bit different than that, but I remember walking in, Pete DeBoer and Steve Spott were the coaches there. And
Spotter,
they're in Dallas now. And they brought me in the room. They were like, "Do you want to be the captain?" And I wasn't the captain. I was assisting.
So there was already a captain.
Yeah, there was already a captain. It was Mike Richards. It was Mike Richards.
Mike Richards.
He was the captain.
Shout out to Mike Richards.
Yeah. So Richie was the captain, and they didn't start out as good as they thought. I think it might have been like 1-3-1 or something. Slow start. It was a decent start. Like it was like 2-3-1 or whatever. Yeah. It wasn't like crazy. But then they were like, "Do you want to be a captain?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't want to ruffle any feathers." You know what I mean?
Yeah, like just being you don't want to be that guy.
Yeah, just being that. You don't want to take the C away from somebody. And then he goes, "Do you want to be the captain or not?" And then I was like, "Yeah, give me that C. I'll take it." Because I just knew, like, I was there for 3 years, paid my dues, and I felt like I should lead the team.
Yeah.
If I'm playing at my top and working as hard as I could, then everyone else is going to follow, kind of thing. And I felt not like Richie isn't one of the greatest player, captain, winning person in history of hockey, but At that time, I just felt like I needed it to help with the team and help pull the guys on. So
now it was pretty fitting for you to be captain, though. Like, I mean, you're leading the team every year in scoring. You almost make your NHL squad. You have that pro experience now with the preseason games, which is incredible, man. When you're at that age playing preseason, come down to your major junior team, and then man, I mean, you are the leader. Guys were definitely looking up to you. They're probably watching the way that you tied your skates, man, coming back from an NHL camp, right? So I thought it was pretty fitting. When I had heard that you got the C, I was pretty proud, man. This is obviously goes way back, but yeah, no, that was an incredible feat. That same year, though, Royce, you guys end up winning the OHL championship. You lead the team, but who are you guys playing in the finals, though?
Ottawa.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah, I played the finals on my birthday.
It was your
Ottawa.
birthday too.
The game one of the games.
Okay. So one of the games is your birthday.
It was like game 3 or something like
in
that.
Ottawa.
In Ottawa, game
No
3 or 4.
way.
In Ottawa, my birthday. So that was pretty special. I was 18-year-old. Or 19-year-old.
Did you go to a lot of 67s games growing up?
A few, not many.
You were a fan, probably.
Yeah,
right?
I remember going to the Memorial Cup when it was there, and remember they won the Memorial Cup in Ottawa.
Yes.
So I was at that game. It was kind of cool.
Wow.
Yeah. Or
at the Civic
we couldn't
Center.
afford tickets and stuff growing up, so that was given from my agency and stuff like that.
Yeah,
That's the only reason why I was there.
Yeah.
But that was we were definitely a fan of the 6-7s. Like we looked up to them as kids and stuff like that, and it's such a big part of Ottawa, right? The Senators and 6-7s. So
huge part. So now we're gonna kind of move along. Obviously both of us were drafted to Buffalo. Now, the point of this little segment here, and I'm gonna look at the camera when I say this, it's gonna help hearing from someone that played for the team for several years like how you did. I really want to kind of put respect back on the Buffalo Sabres name. And what I mean by that is we both know the struggles that Buffalo has had the last 10 seasons, okay?
Yeah.
They've been a struggling organization. But I find that, especially living in Toronto, and you could attest to this, it's like the mega of hockey over here. Everything revolves around the Maple Leafs. And unless you're a top team, the people here really don't respect those bottom feeders like San Jose, and you see the posts on social media about the jokes about San Jose got their second power play goal of the year, but it's game 20, and you know what I mean, stuff like that. And I find that because Buffalo has struggled, that they're lacking that respect from the hockey world. So now, what I want to talk about now is how incredible this organization really is. This jersey right here, this is actually my draft jersey, Rosie. I didn't even take the tag off yet. Man. It's like really genuine there. All that's just coffee or whatever over the years. But now, me and you were both drafted by Buffalo. Buffalo is an organization that until recently, they didn't have a billionaire owner or whatever it is they got going on now. Small market team, which means that they need to develop their players from the ground up.
Yeah.
And did they ever do a good job, Royce? We were part of that program. You excelled and went right through the program to the top. I got to see a lot of it. Now, after we were drafted, we would get to do incredible things like go to conditioning camps.
Yeah.
At the Triad Apartments.
Yeah.
Miller Sport Highway.
Playing euchre.
Okay. So now, I just want the listeners and viewers to know, how big of it, for me, Royce, it was such a big impact in my life, getting access to the information that we learned, to the lifestyle that we were living, to just learning how to be a pro. You got guys like Don Luce, legendary Don Luce, that really took care of us, man. I felt like he was like my uncle. I don't know about you,
Yeah,
bro,
same,
but
yeah.
we would live in these apartments, ladies and gentlemen, and I think it was 3 weeks. It was quite a while. It wasn't just a week.
I think it was 3 weeks.
It was 3 weeks. We lived like pros.
Train every day.
We trained every day. Do you remember seeing, and I'm sure obviously you had access to this once you made the team, but this is before we even signed, Royce. We had access to sports psychologists. I remember the Toronto Maple Leaf guy, that guy with the beard that just had the best swag.
Nutritionists and stuff like that. Yeah.
That was where I really learned how to eat. My whole life from this point on, most of my knowledge for nutrition, for knowing that it's really what you eat the day before that gives you the power for your game day the next day. And I remember Doug McKenney like writing on paper with circles and explaining to us that, you know, we got to stay anabolic every 5 hours. What was your experience like with those conditioning camps, bro? Like it's a really big, strong memory for me. Like,
yeah. Also, builds camaraderie between the guys, right? So it's guys that you're playing together in Rochester with, and guys that you're going to play in the NHL with, and you know at some point you're going to play with those guys. It's inevitable, either if it's in Rochester or in the NHL.
Absolutely.
And they're getting called up, sent down, whatever you're gonna. And so it's important to be friends and to push each other. And I think we did that. And I think, like you said, the learning experience with the nutrition and sports psychologists, and even the training. Because back then we didn't really know how to train. We thought we knew how to train, but we didn't. And we didn't know how hard we needed to train to get to that level. So those are things that you learn throughout that process. Where, like you said, you learn how to be a pro. You learn how to eat. You learn how to get some rest at night. You learn how to work out. You learn how to get to the rink every day early and get prepared for practice and games. So these are things that you learn throughout these processes. I'm sure they're doing it now, but at that time, for sure, it was definitely beneficial for us.
I thought the program was as incredible that the Buffalo Sabres ran. It really prepared us. And then, you know, just things like, okay, so like pizza, for example. Royce, I was only under contract with Buffalo for 4 years on a two-way. Jim Pizzatelli still has influence on me, man. I haven't even seen the guy in 20 years. We were treated like we were the team when we were there. Guys like Pizza, the Doug McKenney, you know, I think he was like the ex-Pittsburgh Steelers strength coach or something. What was the name of the gentleman that was the equipment manager?
Rip?
Rip.
Man. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like I'll never forget this. Buffalo does it so well. We all end up in Rochester because of the lockout. Like, you would have been in the NHL already, but you, Vanek, Pominville, Miller, you guys all got to play with us. And man, were we ever able to build camaraderie? And I couldn't even imagine what it was like for you guys when you guys graduated to full-time Buffalo Sabres, because there was a lot of you guys within a couple of years, man.
Yeah, well, that one draft, it was like Yuri Novotny, myself, Pominville, Thorburn, Dennis Weidman, Nathan Page. These are guys that all played in the NHL. This is one draft.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, there was probably like 6 or 7 of us.
Chris Thorburn?
Thorburn,
Yep.
Man. You know, there was like 6 or 7 of us. Gossad, like, there was like, that whole draft was from like 1 to 8.
They drafted
pretty
really
much
well.
all
man.
made the NHL.
Like Nathan Page, I believe, was a 7th round pick.
Yeah.
Okay, so he was a guy that went in the draft twice.
Like you said, like, they have to draft well to become good. They have to draft well and make some good trades. We traded for Chris Drury, Danny Barrera.
Yeah.
Like, we made some good trades, right?
We did.
And then we kind of worked around it. And then they drafted well. They drafted well, and you know, Ryan Miller was a late pick too.
Ryan was a late pick.
Yeah. So these are things that, you know, who would have thought Ryan Miller was going to play 10 years with the Sabres, 12 years or whatever.
And be the all-time winningest American goalie.
Yeah, maybe how long? Maybe more, 12, 14 years maybe with the Sabres, something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, who would have thought that?
Yeah.
Being that late of a pick.
So now also the runs that you guys had in the playoffs. So like, this is all towards the respect on Buffalo's name, because yes, ladies and gentlemen, last 10 years, the Buffalo Sabres have not been a winning organization. But before that, I would challenge that the 15, 20 years before this playoff drought, I bet you that Buffalo probably has one of the better records in the years previous to that.
Well, we won. We
the
were
playoff
first,
runs.
Yeah, we were also first in the league one year. We finished first, won the President's
exactly.
Cup. But the year before, we lost Game 7 in conference finals because we shot the puck over the glass.
Game 7 in the conference
and that was the first year they implemented that rule. And it was just like the puck just sailed over the glass. They scored on the power play in the third period, and then we end up losing. And then the next year we lost to Ottawa, who then lost to Anaheim.
Some big battles with Ottawa.
Yeah,
right?
It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, the 2 years, either of us could have won the cup. If Ottawa beats us, they probably go on to win the cup.
Yep.
But we beat Ottawa, and then we got injured. and that's we
Yes.
had like 5D out of the lineup.
Yes.
And so we couldn't sustain it for we still pushed it to 7 without 5D, but
So now that's like one game short of being in the NHL finals, the Stanley Cup final. What was it like to, like, I know the year that you guys, like in Kitchener, when you guys won the whole thing, like I know the Mem Cup is like a couple weeks after season's done and all that kind of stuff, but that run with Buffalo, that must have been a long season.
yeah. Well,
What was that like?
I had like so we won the Memorial Cup with Kitchener.
Yeah.
So that went on till end of June or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the next year we lost. So I played in Buffalo, and then I got sent down for the playoffs, and then
Yeah.
we lost in the conference finals in Rochester. And then the next 2 years I lost in the conference finals
That's
in
right.
the NHL. So I have 4 years in a row I was playing till like June, and it was
Yeah.
like after that, my body's banged up.
Yeah.
And I think the next year we didn't make the playoffs, and I was
Yeah.
kind of like, not like happy, obviously, because
Yeah, but to give your body a little bit of a rest.
And then Team Canada calls and they're like, "Hey, we want you to play the World Championships," and I'm like, "Oh my God!" So still had to play the World Championships.
So let's talk about that, Rosie, because that is in the talking points. That must have been pretty humbling, eh? To get that
Yeah.
call.
So that year, I started off as the 13th forward. There was like, Spezza, Patrick Sharp,
Yeah, it was a powerhouse. Yeah.
Nash, Perry, St. Louis,
Yep.
Shane Doan. Like they're like the
Shane
lineup was like stacked.
Yeah.
And I came in there as the 13th forward and played my way up. I scored a hat trick one game.
Did
and
you?
So I
Right
played
on.
my way up, and I ended up being on one of the top lines, which was unbelievable. And that's just wherever you start doesn't mean you're going to finish there, right? So that was my thing. Was like whenever I'm going to get a shift, I'm going to go out and work as hard as I can.
Yes.
See what happens. Worst
Yes.
case scenario, I'm 13-4. Whatever happens, like I'm playing for Canada. Who cares, right? Like if you're playing for Canada, you're happy.
Very
I don't
true.
care where you put me.
Very
I'm happy,
proud,
right?
yep.
You're very proud. So when I get to go on the ice, I'm going to work as hard as I can, and that's what I did. And it ended up working out. I scored a few goals, and then moved up the lineup and kind of played a lot more than I thought I was, and that we ended up losing in the finals to Russia again, which is funny. The puck got shot over the glass
Really?
in overtime,
No way.
and they scored on so Ovechkin or Kovalchuk scored on the power play. I think Kovalchuk on the power play in overtime because we shot the puck over the glass. So I'm like, this stupid rule probably cost me
Just killed
a
you
gold
guys,
medal and a
There's
Stanley
that,
Cup.
and then the crease
yeah,
before us, right? Brett Hall. So did you play against any of the boys in that tournament from Buffalo? Did anybody else make any
I think
teams?
Palmer played the U.S. and
Oh, so okay, right on.
maybe Miller I think played
Yeah?
for the U.S.
Okay.
And then you got guys like playing for the other teams like Czech and I think
Yeah.
Kolik and some of those guys played. And
Right on.
it's whenever you can represent your country, man, it's one of the greatest feelings. Like
Oh,
I played
yeah.
the Olympics. The Olympics were unbelievable. I know it wasn't. I got cut from one of the Olympics in Vancouver in 2008 and. Or was it 2010?
2010, yeah.
2010, and that sucked.
Yeah.
And I went to the training camp, tried out, and then just got cut. And I was just kind of like, I didn't have quite the year I wanted to
Yeah.
start,
Yeah.
and I was okay, but not good enough to be like
Yeah.
on the team. But I was right there. I had 2 world championships before that where I played real well.
Yeah.
So
Probably made you hungry though.
yeah, it made me
right?
hungry, and then
Yeah.
the other one wasn't with the NHL guys, but still, it was we had a great group of guys, and,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and it was
Incredible experience.
It was fun, yeah, it was great.
I want to jump to you when you first kind of found out that you were getting the call in the regular season. So you start with Rochester, 26 points in your first 26 games for pro. Okay. So the Sabres really had no choice, man. They had to call the Rosinator up, man. It was exploding. I remember one game. I think Pominville had like 5 goals, and then you had like 7 or 8 points.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you guys were killing it. Buffalo had no choice. They had to call you up. You deserved it. You earned it. I want you to tell the story about when you found out you got called up, and I heard there's a pretty interesting story with your mom and uncle.
Oh yeah, yeah.
This is so long ago, eh? We forget.
Yeah,
about
you
some
think
of these
about it.
things.
My uncle, he's passed away actually.
God bless
this
his
year,
soul.
Yeah, and but he came up with my mom and
To where? To Raj?
Rochester.
Okay.
Yeah, so they drove.
They drove from Ottawa to Raj.
Yeah, this was before kind of cell phones. Cell phones existed, but I had one, like a small
Yeah,
flip
but a
phone.
lot of people didn't.
And then my mom didn't have one.
Yes.
I had like a little tiny flip phone. Or
Yeah.
whatever it was. And so they drove down, and I was standing there after I got told pregame skate that you're getting called up. So
Yep.
now I'm like, well, I got to wait for my mom. It's like, well, you got to get to the airport. I'm like, well, I kind of got to wait. Like, what was she going to do? Like,
Yeah.
she doesn't even know. So we were going to go to lunch. So she showed up. She's like, I'm going to show up at this time. And back in the day, you had to be there at that time.
You did.
There was no texting and being
No,
like,
no.
hey, sorry, I'm going to be 10 minutes late. No,
Yeah.
no, you were there at that
Yeah.
time, and that's it. So she showed up, perfect timing, and I'm like, hey, Mom, I really got to go. My car's packed. I got called over to the NHL. I'm heading to the airport, and I'm flying to Minnesota. We're playing tonight. And she's like, what? She's like, what are we going to do? I'm like, I don't know. You want to jump on the plane with us? And my uncle couldn't fly at the time. He was,
Okay.
Like, wasn't able to fly. So she's like, no, he can't fly, so we're going to drive back. So they drove from Ottawa. My mom picked up my uncle in
Yeah.
Gananoque, Lansdowne.
Yeah.
Picked him up, and then near Kingston. And then drove all the way just to turn around, drive
Go all the
back,
way back.
and then watch the game. So she sat home at like 7 p.m. or whatever, and game started. And then she just watched the game at home, my first NHL game.
So what was her reaction like, though, dude? Like, you know what I mean? So you're waiting for her outside of ESL? Like where? Like
yeah,
where
right outside the arena. Yeah.
Okay, so you're right outside our practice facility. Mom
No,
pulls up.
this was a game rink because we were playing.
Oh, so Blue Cross.
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
'cause Blue Cross,
It was
'cause
a
we're playing a
day.
game night,
Game
yeah,
day.
yeah,
Game day
practice,
skate. She pulls up downtown. You come out and say, Mom, I just got called up.
Yeah, she was. They were both like super happy, ecstatic, and just a little bit of tearing up. And I'm
Of
sure
course.
they were driving about 140 on the way back, just
man.
just to catch the game. But yeah, it's a surreal moment. I think it goes by so quick. It's hard to soak it in.
Oh yeah.
Your first NHL game, as you know, it's hard to kind of like just process what's going on, like all the emotion and
overwhelming.
Yeah, it's overwhelming,
Yeah.
and then now you're like, now I got to focus on my job and what I need to do and how to do it and get my body ready. And I showed up literally like 10 minutes before warm up, kind of thing. Like I missed all the meetings. It's one of those where you're flying in, your equipment's late.
Okay,
like,
so they were already there.
Yeah, they were
and
already
They were just
there,
flying
yeah.
you to meet the team. Okay, right on.
So it was one of those, and I show up with so I thought I was going to land early enough and go to the airport, change my clothes, put a tie on.
Yeah.
Didn't even have time for that. Had to sprint down. I had like a turtleneck on. And I sprint in, get into the dressing room, and first thing somebody sees, I think it was Chris Drury's like, hey, no tie, that's fine. Not even
Did you have to pay it?
But he's like, congrats, kid, on getting called up.
Okay, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Congrats on getting called up. By the
Rookie
way,
stuff.
By
Yep.
the way, it's a fine with no tie.
It's a fine day.
I was like, buddy, I'm eating a meatball sub right now. Before a
Give me
game.
a break.
Like, it was funny though.
Drury was unbelievable.
Oh, he was the
though,
best, man. He was the best.
I gotta tell you a little thing. We got a couple minutes, but I gotta fit this in. So Drury was number 23. Okay, big signing by the organization, big time. I'm a two-way guy going to camp, hoping to maybe make the team. And so the first time I was on the ice with Drury, I think we were on the same training camp team. So we're skating around, and he must have noticed that I had 23 still on the back of my helmet.
Okay.
So he skates up. I'm a big fan of Chris Drury. I probably have a bunch of his cards. He skates up, gives me a little whack, and says, "Hey, big guy, sorry I took your number." Right? I'm like, man, it's an honor for you to wear that number. So that's pretty cool. Like Drury was one of the guys that always took the time, talk to the younger guys, make people feel comfortable.
He was great.
I'm sure it was the same.
I got my number a weird way too. Like I wasn't supposed to make it out of camp.
Yeah.
And then when you're playing your first exhibition game, same thing. It's basically the same thing as the NHL. You're so overwhelmed. I'm not even thinking about what number I'm going to wear. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I get to the rink and I see Roy and number 9. I'm like, that looks pretty cool because I wore 14.
Awesome.
I wore 14 in Kitchener, and I wore 21 growing up because Peter Forsberg was my favorite player. So at that time I was like 9. Usually I thought I was going to get like some weird number like in the high 70s or 80s or
Yeah.
you know, a rookie
Yeah.
number.
Yeah.
But I got number 9, and I was like, that was pretty cool.
That's-
you know, so
that's-
I think the equipment guys kind of like me, like my feistiness and
Yeah,
stuff like
man.
that. So they're like, 9 looks good on you. So I was
Right
like,
on,
awesome,
bro.
man.
That must have been a great feeling. Man, it's incredible. Like just, especially with former teammates, there's just so much to talk about. But okay, so one of the last things I want to ask you, buddy, is I remember like when we all first turned pro. Like, well, one of the big things for a guy is buying his first car, right?
Yeah.
We have our first money that's really like more than a summer job,
Yeah.
right? From our $50 a week.
Yeah.
You know, we have the first installment of our signing bonus. You know, we're really proud. We're feeling good about ourselves, and you know, I want to go out and get a car that I've always wanted, right? So I'll always remember yours though, the Lincoln Navigator,
Yeah,
right?
man.
With the TV in there. This is back in, when was this? 2002.
Yeah,
This is
2003.
2003,
yeah,
man,
yeah.
with a TV in the back.
Yeah.
How long did that last?
What, the TV?
No,
Or
the
car?
Lincoln Navigator. man.
So, yeah, it's a funny story actually. I think it lasted like 7 or 8 years, like quite a bit, man.
Right
It was
on.
probably like 7 years. And then to a point where I'm like, hey man, there's this car, like the running boards weren't working. Like just everything, like the button that shuts the trunk, like things weren't working. So I'm like, I gotta get rid of this thing.
Yeah.
And a buddy that I still talk to right now, he's a big developer in Ottawa.
Yeah.
He was a bartender at the time and
Okay.
working for cash on the side just to,
Yeah.
you know, do all this stuff. And he was like, hey man, can I borrow that Navigator? I'm like, dude, you do not want this car. I promise you.
Yeah, you don't want it.
it.
Yeah.
And then he's like, no, I want it. So then he ended up buying it off me.
Right on. Did you give him a
And
friend?
I gave him
a friend
I
rate?
gave him a really good
Okay.
deal. And he's like, this thing's a piece of junk. I told you, man. I literally told you to not. So we actually we're still friends this day. We actually work together on a deal here
Right on.
in Ottawa. So
That's cool, man. Yeah, man. I'll always remember the Navigator. I think I remember what everybody had, man. Like
Yeah.
it's. I don't know if that's weird or whatever, but I just remember like there was guys that kind of went a little
Sports
over their
car,
means.
like, yeah.
I remember Man Carey got like a big expensive Escalade.
Yeah.
You know, he was a late pick like me, and it was, you know, that might have been a little bit over means. And then, you know, there was guys like I don't think Palmer went too fancy. He was pretty
Like
like,
a
I think it was
little
like a smaller
Beamer, yeah, he likes
BMW
BMW.
3 Series maybe.
Well, I got the Navigator because I knew, Brendan Bell is a friend of mine. He played for the Leafs, Brendan Bell.
Yep.
And his dad, Les Bell, had a Lincoln, Navigator,
Yeah.
Lincoln Ford dealership. So I got this really good deal, and you know, I got this big, huge Navigator,
Yeah.
which I didn't need. I was one person.
Yeah.
I didn't need a giant Navigator.
It was awesome though.
But like, yeah,
it was really good, man.
yeah.
It was really good. Last thing I just want to say, Rosie, obviously, you know, we haven't seen each other in a while, man. It's so cool to see you, man. You look exactly the same as you did. when you were
Yeah,
a
so you do, man.
So I want to congratulate you, man. I know that you have 2 children now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have 2 children. Huxley is the son. Huxley is the next star hockey player.
Yeah, hopefully.
When are you gonna get him skating, man?
He's on ice right now.
He's on ice right now,
Yeah.
and he's 4.
4.5. So he started U5 this year.
Right on.
So we're at Ted Reed, but
You guys
he's-
are at Ted Reed?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So he's got a bunch of buddies in his class and some older people that he knows that some of my friends that
Yeah.
have children too that he knows that are friends with. So we decided to go to Ted Reed because we know a bunch of people there, and it's been awesome. Like they've been great, and it's crazy to see how they can barely stand up on their skates.
Yeah.
And then in like
And
a
the
couple of
improvement,
months
yeah.
they just go this way.
So now,
right?
does Huxley, am I saying it right?
Yeah, Huxley. Yeah.
Does Huxley have the skating stride of Derek Roy?
Yeah, he's
Come on.
He high steps.
Does he really, though?
Yeah, he high steps.
Really?
Yeah,
You're not
yeah.
just saying that because you're his
No,
dad.
it's funny.
So he's good.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
he looks
he's
good.
good, eh?
Well, I mean, like he's
Yeah.
he's four,
Yeah, he's
4.5.
He's 4.
Let's be real. But he's, you know, him and a couple other guys are like the fastest skaters. So he went from not barely standing up on his skates, and
Yeah.
all the other kids can skate, and he was
Yeah.
kind of embarrassed. But he's really athletic, so you could tell
Wow.
he's going to catch it quick.
That's
and I told my
awesome.
wife, like, he's going to get it quick. Like, don't worry, he's fine.
Yeah.
And it took him like, you know, a couple of weeks, and then once he got it, then he
Yeah.
now he wants to go as fast as he can, right?
But your wife understands how elite you were, though, right? Like, as a kid?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I think Gen X has a lot to do with kids. Like,
so she knows what may be in store here.
Yeah, especially at
like
a young.
top
I told
player.
her, I'm like, babe, it's a different life. You know, you're gonna be spending
Yeah.
time at hockey rinks and stuff like that, and being a hockey mom. Like, those moms put a lot of work in.
They do.
Don't get a lot of credit for what they do.
Yeah, give a big shout out to the hockey moms out there. And yeah, man, Royce, this is awesome. I got to put you on the spot though. Will you come back for a part 3?
Yeah, for sure, man. I
appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
No
I want to thank the listeners and viewers for tuning into another episode of The Sheriff. We'll see you guys next time. Woo! Thank you, buddy. That was so awesome. But you're...
It's the Sheriff.